Pre-built keyboards are fairly uncommon in the custom keyboard space. That sentence alone sounds like a bit of a self-contradiction. But with the release of boards like the Bridge75, something coming ready right out of the box but meant to be customized, I suspect we'll start to see more of these types of boards, especially in the budget custom space. In comes the Bridge75. Developed by Shortcut Studio, a new contender in the space, this board has enormous promises and an extremely low price point for what it offers. Let's take a look. It comes in a pretty plain and simple box. Inside we have some documentation on the key mappings, an accessory box that includes our Bluetooth dongle, some extra switches, a basic braided USB cable, and a branded switch and keycap holder. Besides this, it's just the board itself. This is shrink wrapped and also has a piece of protective plastic on top. Let's take a look at some of the specs. The Bridge75 is a gasket mounted 75% keyboard that comes in 3 different versions: the base Bridge75, the Bridge75 Plus, and the Bridge75 AG. For PCBs, all of these will come with a 1.2mm hot swap PCB, and the Bridge75 and Bridge75 Plus will have per key flex cuts. As for additional layout support, these will only support swapping between step caps and normal caps lock. All of these have daughter boards and are compatible with VIA. For plates, Bridge75 will come with a PC plate, Bridge75 Plus will come with an FR4 plate with flex cuts, and Bridge75 AG will come with an FR4 plate without flex cuts. And for color options, there are 5 total: anodized silver and black, and spray coated white, cream, and pink, which all have glitter. The Bridge75 will only come in the anodized colors, while the Bridge75 Plus and AG will have all 5 color options available. For the weights, the Bridge75 will come with a brushed stainless steel weight. The Bridge75 Plus will come with a brushed stainless steel weight and also a glossy trim, and the Bridge75 AG will come with a brass weight with a glossy trim. Both Bridge75 and Bridge75 Plus will also come with Princess linear switches, while Bridge75 AG will come with SC magnetic switches. Here's the full model breakdown, as for some reason it's very confusing, and there are a lot of tiny differences between each of the models. When it comes down to price, the Bridge75 will range from $85 for the base model to $119 for the highest end model with a spray coat finish. Let's take a listen to the Bridge75 stock configuration, with Princess switches, a polycarbonate plate, and all foams installed. So the board has a very plain PE foam sound signature. It's a bit on the deeper end, which is definitely being helped by the included PBT keycaps. It's quite loud, which is definitely a good thing given that the stock configuration has this many foams installed. The included stabilizers also seem tuned pretty well, with very minimal ticking on the enter and no other noise elsewhere, but I've found that PE foam sometimes helps cover up ticking stabilizers, so we'll see in just a bit. The MDD Princess linears that are included with the base Bridge75 are pretty basic, with a PC top, nylon bottom, and a palm stem. I think they have a pretty good factory lube job and feel pretty consistent across the board. And the entire pre-built configuration is, by all means, more than good enough to run with. But for those who will be tuning this board to their own liking, stuffing all the foams inside isn't going to be representative of how the base board sounds without any modification. So let's take it apart and rebuild it in a more neutral configuration. I'm going to start with just the PCB and gaskets. We'll add on the PC plate with the factory lubed MMD stabilizers included, and install the Princess linear switches. With the inner assembly done, we can get to the case. I'm going to install the anti-static sheet, connect the daughter board, install the inner assembly, close the case up with the catch ball mount, and reinstall the included PPT keycaps. Let's take a listen. The no foam sound is really dull, so I'm going to do some minimal tape modding to some of these PCB cuts. And let's take another listen. So the sound is still very dull. This is shaping up to be a board more suitable with foams, so definitely be wary of this when choosing your configuration, as I feel the Bridge75 Plus and Bridge75HE are going to be easier to work with if you want a better non-foam sound signature. Because of the PC plate and flex cut PCB included in this configuration, or using at least the plate foam if you take the PE foam sheet out, the sound also ends up being pretty sharp, plasticky, and quiet, which I personally find a little irritating. This could also be an issue with the included switches, and I have a feeling some deeper switches would sound much better when combined with the PC plate. I mentioned earlier that PE foam can sometimes cover up ticking stabilizers, and I'm happy to at least say that there isn't any here. Especially with the spacebar, I think the included factory lubed MMD stabilizers are good to use right out of the box, and don't need to be retuned, which makes things a lot easier. As for the feel, taking out the foams results in a significant increase in the amount of flex and bounce the board has. Especially with the flex cuts, it's pretty easy to bottom out the inner assembly, so I would suggest leaving the anti-static sheet in the bottom of the case. Besides this, the board already has a decent amount of softness with the PC plate and pretty standard dumbbell gasket mount. The design of this board is pretty basic but tasteful. On top we have uneven bezels, with slightly larger top-bottom bezels versus the left and right bezels. We also have a bit of a cherry lip at the bottom and very minimal chamfering, which makes the board look and feel pretty sharp. This is only counteracted by the rounded corners, which can also be seen on the bottom case near the side. The side profile is pretty one-dimensional, with a slight angle and very flat machining. At the back is our centered recessed USB-C port. At the bottom is the weight piece, which is just brushed steel from my base Bridge75, and at the bottom, a little bit of engraving. The bottom feet are also different here, which helps add just a tiny bit of visual flair. But besides that, there's not really much else. On the inside, we have just one battery for the Bridge75, so the other side is filled with a weight. Because the Bridge75HE comes with a wired PCB, both of these slots will be occupied with just weights, so do keep in mind that along with the brass weight, it's going to be slightly heavier out of the box. I also appreciate that this board comes with a catch ball mount, which is definitely going to make it easier to take apart this board and mod multiple times, something I encourage beginners in the hobby to do. And in terms of the material quality, everything looks great. Since I don't have a spray coated version, I can't speak for it, but the anodization is pretty smooth and the grains are fine. I'm personally not a huge fan of brushed steel, but that's an entirely aesthetic decision. I just personally wish there was more chamfering or filleting on the edges of the case, as to me, the sharpness does feel ever so slightly cheap. As for the included PPT keycaps, they're pretty good. I'm not exactly sure where they're sourced from, but they're double shot and the printing is pretty good, especially on the alphas. The mods are just ever so slightly wonky, but nothing to be worried about, especially at this price point. So I initially thought the options for this board were a little confusing. Bridge75, Bridge75 Plus, and Bridge75HE all seemed very similar, too similar to have as separate configs, but after taking a closer look at every aspect of this board, these options make a lot of sense and are organized by archetype, especially the HE. The Bridge75 is the all-around solid bass option, with not that much sound, feel, or color flexibility, but the best price. The Bridge75 Plus is great if you care about wireless and RGB, and the Bridge75HE is great if you care about sound and aesthetics. The FR4 plate is going to afford you a stronger sound profile compared to a PC or FlexCut FR4 plate, and it doesn't include the PE foam. If you really wanted to tweak the sound, you wouldn't be using it anyway. And compared to the market, at the current price point, this board has a fully built configuration that runs cheaper than the Rainy 75, which starts at $99. That in and of itself is an enormous feat, because at this point every dollar counts. So even though the Bridge75 doesn't have a great no-foam sound, that's really the only downside. You're getting a full package, high-quality, custom keyboard style 75 at a cost that rivals non-custom pre-builts, and with that, what more do you really need?